Hello and welcome to this week's live event in the group Women Healing from Emotional Abuse with Power, Passion, and Pleasure. And also for those of you listening later, either on YouTube or in the Facebook group, my name is Ailsa Kepi and I am curator of this group as well as a personal and professional coach and therapist with working with people to empower their full potential, especially in relationships and including their energies. So today's topic is really relevant to both of these kinds of aspects of relationship and energy because we're talking about the empath and the narcissist and how we move back and forth. What do those two things mean? How do they interact? And maybe how do they enable each other to continue in perhaps a dysfunctional pattern? So, what I wanted to kind of say to begin with, because, often we think of empaths as being the good guys and narcissists as being the bad guys. And I just wanted to, first of all, let's take away that construct and let's look at a spectrum of empathy as if we had really highly empathic people at one end and we have really narcissistic people at the other end. And it's a spectrum. So what I like to feel is hopeful is that as we're starting to notice the idea of empathy, I think as a culture, we're starting to understand that being empathic is a sense of having emotional intelligence. We have the emotional ability to understand other people's feelings as if they're our own. This is an evolution of the human being as a loving and understanding being. So, on that spectrum, it's good that we start noticing empathy. And then having noticed empathy, we also notice those people that have less empathy. And, narcissistic attributes tend to basically be a lack of empathy, a lack of being able to understand anyone else's feelings. It's all about their own stuff. And so, this being a spectrum, we're noticing more narcissists in the world. And, it's interesting that we sort of say, oh, maybe the culture is becoming more narcissistic. Well, maybe, but perhaps there's also a part of that is that we're noticing more empathy. And some of us, who kind of see ourselves as being empaths are becoming more aware of our empathic abilities. And, both of these have good and bad sides to them. They have light and shadow sides. So there isn't I'm an empath, I'm good, and you're a narcissist, you're bad. They both, narcissistic traits help lots of people succeed in ways that people that are empathic couldn't dream of doing. Whereas on other kinds, empaths, are really good at relational building and, in lots of ways are very understanding and help pave the way for lots of, loving interactions. So this can have an upside and a downside. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. So, empathy is the most precious human quality, according to the Dalai Lama. So, we don't want to feel that it's too much of a burden. Although, if you have decided or if you found yourself to be kind of an empath or a highly sensitive person, maybe another way to say that, if you find that you have a lot of those traits, you may notice things like you get burnt out, you feel suddenly in a really bad mood or depressed when there's people around you. You have all sorts of issues like trying to focus because you're getting so drawn into watching other people or being aware of all these other energies around you. And so, this can be a hindrance to an empath actually doing anything what they're wanting to do in the world. And what we want to also notice is that this can lead to almost an enabling of a narcissistic behavior in someone that's close to us, particularly a romantic partner. Being an empath, we can end up both enabling each other to become more polarized on this spectrum of empathy. So the narcissist becomes more narcissistic, the empath becomes more empathic perhaps, or more, loving or helping or fixing, some of the shadow sides of the empath. And in the end, we actually create more of what we don't want instead of what we do want. So as empaths, we have a responsibility here. We can't just sit here and say, oh, I'm a victim, I'm with a narcissist, they're the bad guy, I'm the good guy, I don't need to change anything about me, I'm the victim here. Everyone just needs to feel sorry for me, or everyone needs to help me, or why don't things work out for me? I mean, this is a very childlike view of how to improve. So, we have to acknowledge that we have this empath side of ourselves, and then we actually have to take responsibility for being an empath and everything that means. And what that often means, the trademark of an empath, according to Judith Orloff, who's worked with empathy, I think she's written a book about empaths as well, says, the trademark of an empath is feeling and absorbing other people's emotions and or physical symptoms because of our high sensitivities. So we pick up what other people are feeling. Suddenly you have a headache, and because someone next to you has a headache, but your back hurts, or you're feeling depressed, or suddenly you feel sad and you don't know why. And what this actually is talking about is, and here, listen very carefully to this idea. If we have a high level of empathy, if we're high on the empathic spectrum, we have a lack of safe boundaries, and we need to learn how to protect ourselves. So it comes down to boundaries. And some of the best people at kind of pushing boundaries, or at having very strong boundaries, or knowing how to work with that, are narcissistic people, because they know when we don't have boundaries, and they know how to keep pushing it because they want what they want. So and also when we lack these boundaries for ourselves, we don't make our own boundaries to feel safe and happy in our own self. We try and fix or help or save other people from their own feelings and pain, and we don't look after our own selves, and that's a lack of boundaries for ourselves. So we may have an unconscious need to be seen and recognized. We may have become very empathic from our childhood, needing to kind of manage lots of people's feelings to make sure that we were safe. Often we learn these types of behaviors, and we learn to know what everyone's feeling and know if it's safe to be in the room, kind of thing. But having been unable to set these boundaries for ourselves, what it means is we can't actually be in a loving, authentic relationship. That may sound really harsh, but if we don't have boundaries and we're just fixing and doing and loving, in this kind of ongoing way, we're not actually in an authentic relationship where we're being centered and we're noticing where another person is centered, and we're able to meet them, because we're just loving and fixing and feeling and sensing, and before the other person even realizes it sometimes. And often in the empath narcissistic relationship, at the beginning, the narcissist is really, happy to know what we're doing, because we anticipate everything they want. We already have, we notice that they want their food this way, they want their bed that way, they want to be hugged this way, they don't want to be talked to after work, whatever it is. We notice, we sense it, we know what they want, and we read it, we do it without even them asking. And so this is part of the shadow side that leads to us actually creating more narcissistic behavior in the person that we're with, because we've already helped before they even had a chance to ask for help or realize they needed to ask for help. All these people have done, or you've already done for them whatever they needed. I know for me, I notice still I catch myself. I've done years of work on this, on myself, but I still catch myself. If I hear my kids or my partner or whoever talking about having a hard time, I'm already fixing things for them in my head before they even finish telling me about it. And sometimes they're just venting, or they're telling me about it. And it's funny because my kids actually know me really well. And they are like, Mom, we don't want you to fix anything. We just want you to listen. Just take a step back and listen. Not fix, not help, not love them better. Just listen. Decide if it's something that you want to be involved in. And so this is about boundary setting. And so, this is something empaths really need to work with. So I really want to hammer that home that, if we're not setting these boundaries, and, if you don't know about boundaries, like, please do reach out, message me, book a call with me. I have lots of work and programs and things to help you work on these things. So don't hesitate to reach out. But if you don't have these boundaries and ability to kind of say, here's where I need to look after myself. Here's where I can offer something to the people close to me, and have this good give and take for ourselves, then we cannot be in an authentic, loving relationship either. So, we're narcissists can't, find it hard to be in an authentic relationship also, because they don't care. That, a lot of it is indifference. They don't have very much empathy at all. And, on top of having narcissistic traits, they may also be abusive, which is, even further down, alongside that. So we're just talking about narcissistic traits versus empathic traits. But, you add abusive or manipulative or, addicted to drugs or whatever on top of all of this, you create even more problems. But, so, if we find ourselves that we're always sensing and loving everyone around us, but we rarely ask ourselves, how is that impacting me? How is it impacting me and my body, my energy, my emotions by being so aware of everything around me? So, this is like hyper empathic. And this is the opposite of a narcissistic personality. And it's kind of, two sides of the same coin, if you will. And, we have to kind of, again, it's not a good, bad thing. It's are we taking responsibility for ourselves? And the same, if I was doing a talk for narcissists, I would also say, we all have some narcissistic traits, maybe less than some, more than others. But we also have to look at those and say, are we taking responsibility for ourselves and not putting it on other people? Perhaps if you're with a narcissist, they tend to put their stuff on you. And if you're an empath, you take it anyway. You're already taking it in before they put it on you, and then they put it on you more and you take in more. And so again, you guys are enabling each other in this polarizing effect. So, what I want to focus on today, though, is that a lot of us here are empaths. I'm glad that more people are becoming empathic. Like I said at the beginning, it's a sign of emotional intelligence to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. It's a wonderful quality, but we need to learn how to be responsible about our empathy. If we just, throw our love and fixing and helping and empathy everywhere, it is actually enabling other people to not say, hey, I need to take responsibility, to not say, hey, I need help with this, to not realize that stuff about them. So in that way, we're enabling. And we can, as empaths, dominate or suffocate our partners because we're sensing and feeling so much. I do find with my partner, I'm often like, why are you mad? Or why are you angry right now? Or what's troubling you? And I can read it before he even knows what it's about. So it's pretty interesting to sort of work with, if I'm already sensing there's something up, and I can probably have, I'm pretty intuitive, I can sort of sense what it's about before he's even aware of it. Is that really serving our relationship for me to do that? No, because what I actually want in a partner, and I think what all of us want, is a partner who can sense and know their own self and say, hey, I'm feeling angry right now. Here's what I'm feeling angry about. Can we talk about it? Right? We want someone who can know themselves, and we want to know ourselves. So if we sense and, are feeling them before they even have a chance to do it for themselves, we're not helping them. And if they just are, slight narcissistic traits, if we can learn to have boundaries, we could actually help both of us grow in the relationship to be more balanced. So we can end up suffocating a partner with our too much sensing and feeling and trying to fix and help and save them. And here's the key thing: without being asked. Without being asked, we're doing this. So, that's a boundary violation. To me, if you are offering a fix-it solution or love, even love, if you are offering it without being asked or without asking permission or without having a clear understanding there, then that's a boundary violation. And the whole point between empaths and narcissists, or many people, is that we don't have and cultivate good boundaries. So if we're doing this without being asked, if we're fixing things for them without being asked, we're not allowing that other person to grow. We're not allowing them to realize their own, where they need help, or their own awareness of what their emotions are. We just do it all for them. That's not really helping them become responsible people. And then they're not growing into this wonderful partner that will, somehow learn to love us back. We can't love them enough to make them grow up. We can love them enough to be like we're the parent and they're the child. That's that kind of relationship. But we can't love them enough into unconditional loving relationship because they don't understand that. And we're just creating more and more of that kind of spectrum, those two poles. So if we're unaware of this damaging side of being an empath, we can end up being an emotional manipulator ourselves, or a blackmailer, much like our narcissistic counterpart. And again, I'm not saying that it's all our fault. What I'm saying is that any relationship has two parts to it. And so if we don't want to end up in a relationship with another narcissist, then let's get the heck into what is our part in this, and how do we align ourselves, center ourselves, learn boundaries, understand self-care, work with a coach or a counselor so that we can strengthen our own understanding of ourselves and have the self-discipline to do the self-care practices every day so that we don't end up in another relationship or more people in our lives that are just take. So it's super important. I mean, if you're happy doing that and you want to just become a doormat, then go right ahead. No judgment there. But if you're finding yourself exhausted, depressed, worn out, physically sick, all of these things, then, we need to take responsibility for us and learn to love us first, and then find where we want to be empathic and where we want to close the curtains and maybe we don't take it on. So, be sensitive without over giving and over loving. And we want to also turn our sensitivity towards ourselves. Many of the women I work with, I ask them, like, what would you tell yourself right now? You're feeling tired, you've worked all day, you come home, your partner wants you to do something. And, what would you tell your best friend? I'd tell them, take a rest and ask their partner to help or whatever. And I'm like, well, there is a really good suggestion. You don't need to do everything. You don't need to love them more. You don't need to fix everything. You don't need to do everything to be loved. You don't need to do all that stuff to be loved. You can turn that love on yourself first, and then you can be that person that other people that are able to take responsibility for themselves will come along and go, wow, I want to be in a loving, authentic relationship with you because I can sense you're really centered and grounded and you know who you are and you have confidence and you're sensitive and empathic, but you're not over giving. You don't, over give to me. All of those things. These are ways that we can help ourselves to move forward. So, I just thought this was really important for us to realize, not only to acknowledge, where we are on the spectrum, but to acknowledge that there's a downside to being an empath. Even though society might say, oh, that's so altruistic, you're such a wonderful person, you help everyone, why does nobody help you? Well, they don't help you because you don't help yourself and you don't learn your responsibility and learn about boundaries and, self-love, develop the habits of maintaining your energy and your own personhood so that you can actually be there when when there's legitimate people in your life that you want to be there for. And we're not doing it out of a compulsion. We're doing it out of a, yes, this is a choice. And this is exactly why the first course I created, my introductory course, is called Radical Responsibility, the Power of Choice. So if you want to look that up on my website, pleasureforhealth.com, please do. That's my introductory course on just how these patterns in our personality get set up, what we can start doing about them. And as I said, please do reach out to me. My website's pleasureforhealth.com. I offer free breakthrough calls for anyone in the Facebook group or anyone who is really legitimately committed to becoming, a more solid person that, really can hold your center and who can guide the world into how to have loving and authentic relationships without just, either being overgiving or indifferent and narcissistic. We want to find a really good way to balance that out and be realistic about where we're going as a human species. If you're interested, please reach out to me. www.ailsakepi.com/apply will get you directly to book a call with me. As I said, those other links I'll post in the comments. Hope you've enjoyed this talk. If you're interested in suggesting a topic for my weekly talk here in the Facebook group, please do post it in the group or message me, and I'll do my best to see what I can do. Other than that, I will talk to you all soon.